Tired of dealing with annoying flies, fruit flies, and gnats in your home? The Zevo Flying Insect Trap is your ultimate solution. Don't wait. Check out the link in the video description now to get your Zevo Flying Insect Trap on Amazon and enjoy a bug-free home today.
The 90 million people living on America's coasts have been put on alert. Sea levels are rising, storms are growing fiercer, and more homes, schools, and hospitals are getting flooded. That's the message from a shocking new report from the Union of Concerned Scientists. Rising tides will expose more than 1,600 pieces of hay infrastructure to floods at least twice a year by mid-century, says their 20-page study. And the southern, coastal state of Louisiana is in the eye of the storm. The Pelican State is set to lose some 334 vital sites to floods by 2050, researchers found. That amounts to 189 budget housing units, a dozen government offices, 23 schools, 41 health clinics, 38 energy installations, and 31 sewage plants. New Jersey is not far behind. The Garden State is on track to lose 304 such buildings along its 130-mile Atlantic coastline. Florida, Maryland, and California round out the 5 most threatened states in the country. The research group's policy director Rachel Cletus said the report was a wake-up call for millions of people in coastal communities. Policymakers and public and private decision-makers must act with urgency to take protective action now, said Cletus. The report comes as Tropical Storm Debby showcases the devastating impacts of rain, wind, and floodwater along America's eastern coast. It crashed ashore in Florida's Gulf Coast on Monday as a hurricane, killing at least 6 people and leaving 350,000 homes without power. The storm headed overnight to Georgia and the Carolinas, threatening to drop historic amounts of rain and produce dangerous ocean surges. Climate experts warn that storms like Debby are becoming more frequent and severe in a warming world. This new report shows that, because of sea level rise, flooding is getting worse even without such headline-grabbing events. Since 2000, chronic tidal flooding, also known as sunny day flooding, increased by 400% in the U.S. Southeast Atlantic, researchers found. Along the Gulf Coast, that figure was a staggering 1,100%. Currently, there are some 900 critical infrastructure sites along the U.S. coastlines at risk of high tide flooding at least twice a year. They included schools, hospitals, power stations, health clinics, and sewage treatment plants. But that figure will jump to 1,600 by mid-century, affecting some 3 million people. Longer term, the amount of infrastructure exposed to frequent flooding can face even steeper increases. Researchers envisaged a worst-case scenario in which sea levels rose by 6 feet by the end of the century. That would leave as many as 15,000 sites exposed to tidal flooding. Aside from schools and hospitals, researchers also looked at wastewater facilities, government buildings, and fire stations in their count. They also included brownfield sites that could expose residents to pollutants if flooded. Also included were public housing complexes and subsidized apartment blocks. More than 40% of the roughly 150,000 assets that researchers examined for the report are public or subsidized housing. That's a scary number for a nation that already has a shortfall of some 7 million low-cost units. Researchers showed how coastal communities have already seen their lives upended by flooding. Starting in 2020, some 4,200 residents of the Tidewater Gardens in Norfolk, Virginia, were forced from their homes when officials raised their affordable housing complex to make way for a billion-dollar coastal protection scheme. Many of them struggled to find new homes, researchers warned. In Charleston, South Carolina, sewer overflows due to tidal flooding have sent dangerously untreated wastewater into nearby waterways. And in Miami, Florida, developers continue to spend billions on new apartments even though they're in devastating flood zones, researchers said. The report is alarming for people who have bought properties along coastlines that are increasingly threatened by flooding. They face higher insurance premiums and are in some cases just one flood away from seeing their homes damaged or tumbling in value. Homebuyers across the U.S. face tough choices about where to purchase and to mitigate against the increasingly common wildfires, floods, and other natural disasters that could destroy a prized asset. Nearly a third of Americans have cited global warming as a reason they're willing to move.